This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. This is the Thursday, November 3rd, 2022 meeting of the Ad Hoc Senior Center Feasibility Committee. Welcome all. So we have a pretty full agenda today. First thing, other than call the meeting to order at 12:32, we will just take a quick comment on the minutes at all. If we have a motion to approve the minutes, that's the committee business stuff. Anybody want to make a motion to approve the minutes?
I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes.
Okay, Libby, and do we have a second?
I just, not that it's a biggie, but just a couple quick things. In paragraph 2 to add me, and then to divide up the Spanish knitting class. And then for the next meeting, I think there was just a little spelling error where it said on instead of in.
Oops.
Actually, can you start back up at the top?
Sorry, I made quick notes this morning.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
So for the programming meeting, I was in on that with Janet and
I thought you were. Sorry, it wasn't brought up. I couldn't verify that. Thank you, Darcy.
You're welcome. And then it just to separate like the Spanish, because it looks like it's a Spanish knitting class.
Yep.
It is.
Oh, there may be such a thing. Joan, can you get that one, Joan?
Out of necessity.
Okay.
And then if
Very
you
good. All right,
Scroll.
hold on. I need to break that up. Okay, next.
and then scroll down a little to the next
Okay.
meeting paragraph.
It should.
I think if is supposed to be in detail. At the next meeting, we need to go over in detail,
Yep.
and that was it.
Thank you.
The next sentence says next meeting will be held November 2nd or 3rd. Okay, yep, gotcha. That's fine. Delete that.
Okay.
Okay, great. So do we have a motion to approve the minutes with those changes then?
I make a motion to approve with changes.
Okay, do we have a second? Thank you, Darcy. Hello, don't be shy. Second, please. Thank you. Okay, all in favor, because we're being recorded via Zoom, I have to do a roll call. So all in favor, we'll start with Rini,
Aye.
Darcy,
Aye.
Libby.
Aye.
Audrey,
Aye.
Janet, aye. Okay, thank you. All right. Okay. David.
Yep.
Discussion with Abacus on site evaluations. These are,
Yep.
I already turned out, if you want to share anything,
Yeah, I thought maybe if it made sense, I would just click through this. The input has been really helpful. And just to be, really clear, everything we're doing at this point is a work in progress. And the downside of having it look, oh, that's so clean and neat and tidy, is it looks like an actual design. All of this at this point, you could call it test fits. Is there a reason to continue moving forward? If a site's not working out, we'll just, take it off the table. If it appears to be working, we can incrementally move forward with real floor plans designed for that site, real site plans. And on some of them, we'd like to get more information before we dig in. So can I do screen share here?
yeah, I clicked it on already for you, David, just to
Okay.
have it as well, but maybe.
Here we go. So does that work for everybody?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so clicking through this, locate the site options. Again, this is just, I'm going to keep going. We've outlined the sites. Okay, then there was, how do we phrase this and not viable? And do we take 16 East Street off the table? And to the extent that this is a work in progress, we could just move on. But do we take 16 East? Well, it probably makes sense to keep 16 East Street on this list and say not viable or something else.
David, let me explain because I'm not sure everybody knows.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember what I've already put out there and what I haven't. So, or Andrew. So, in meeting with, in reviewing the deed for the Conant Park, developing a road to a building attached to that park does not seem to be listed as one of the options from the deed. So it sort of removes that parcel B2 from being viable. If we can't build a road to it through Conant Park, then we can't get to it. And based on the deed and how it's read from the original donation, that doesn't seem to fit into the categories that they have mandated through the donation. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yeah, that's
Yes.
right.
Questions on that? So that's why Ed was kind enough to dig up the deed and just uncovered that. So which made that, kind of took that one off the table, unfortunately.
But I think it's good to keep it on the list because due diligence.
Yeah.
As David said, yeah, I think that's a good idea. And the
Okay.
other one that's not maybe viable is because we as a group agreed to do 2 to 3 acres. And if we look at the 80 Street, 215 College Highway, that's under 2 acres. So is that viable or not, even though it's town owned? So we have to make a decision on that. That's doesn't fit into our criteria, basically. So I don't know if anybody wants to comment on that.
I think we need a little bit more supporting evidence as to why it's not viable, just because it's town owned and it's not, doesn't necessarily negatively impact taxes. So I think that for now, I think we need more evidence for why it's not viable.
And further on, talk to that in, it's like 2 sentences, but
Right.
I
It's
think
going to
that's
be
dealt
about
with.
price of renovating versus building.
So we can, in that, absolutely. I mean, we shouldn't take it off the table just because somebody says, oh, it doesn't work. So we'll get to that. So
Excuse me, can you?
Just meant to, is there any other feedback on that besides before we run? Libby?
Yeah, I just have a quick question where it says 1.14 acres combined. Does that include the old Grange parcel?
That's
yes.
15 College Highway.
Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, I see that now. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And later on, there's a clear, I mean, it's conceivable this background information should be at the end rather than the beginning, but because there's more to show later on.
Yeah.
But again, this is part of the work in progress.
I did have one comment back there on, we say no for wetlands, but we don't really know that there aren't wetlands there. We could say not on Mass GIS, but we haven't delineated. And I'm wondering whether or not, I know we're getting a new Conservation Commission agent. I don't know if that person is a wetland scientist and if they could walk the parcels and just say, yeah.
No, they are not a wetland scientist.
Okay. So I don't think until somebody walks it, not even delineating it, wetlands, we can't say for sure that there are no wetlands. So
and I'm looking at your notes, excuse me, in the email that we got, the markup. Which site was that?
The ones that are
all three of them where it says no wetlands.
And this is a really good point. That no is a very tentative no, and a really critical thing everywhere is to get more and better information on wetlands or any other constraints. And there are constraints besides wetlands, although that's a critical one. And probably having conservation weigh in is a good step. So maybe we just take no off or asterisk it. But the bigger point is getting more information.
Even TBD, if you want to put.
Yeah.
That's fine too, so.
Yeah. We don't want to say no unless we're like really sure.
Like, is this a presentation that we're making soon? I mean, it's set up that way.
No, this is, and I do want to make this point. We definitely want to have time to get to the planning stuff for the 10th. All what I'm showing you is just summing up where we're at.
Okay.
But if we say, if you say Abacus don't consider this, we won't consider it. If you say Abacus, yes, dig in deeper. So what this is about is giving us direction. And we've set this up as a presentation. This is about getting feedback from you. And then the next thing we want to review is a presentation for showing on the 10th, which structures the whole meeting. So and maybe Janet, you can tell people to keep moving because we want to have a substantive discussion and we can't put that all for our next meeting because it's a week from today.
Okay,
So,
David, let's keep moving.
Okay, so there seems to be a lot of opportunities here, but we absolutely need verification. And this has been changed a little bit. Just, we had a black rectangle that was long and thin. It doesn't have to be that way. Acknowledge the need for outdoor space. If this is a viable site, it seems to have potential. We want to get more information on the constraints. Want to find out more about septic and especially wetlands and anything else that might impact this. We can look at grading because we have that information. So a question is, where do we go on this? So we can discuss these things, or I can go through all of this, and the follow-up may not be right this minute with directions for us. So maybe I'll keep going, and then we can happy to talk in as much or little detail, but get more information on this.
And if you have questions, and I can't see everybody right now, so if you want to go under reaction button and put your hand up, if I'm not seeing you and recognizing you and you have something you want to share, please do that. Okay. I don't want to miss anybody's thoughts.
So both 79 and 89 Clark seem to be good options. There doesn't seem to be much that would interfere with their use, except it's not town owned. So can you buy it? And is there anything we don't know? So that's the question. Should both of these sites stay on the table? Or you could say 89 Clark has wider frontage on Clark Street. More frontage on Clark Street is a good thing. Why would we consider 79 Clark if we can get 89 Clark? So then, again, that's an issue for you, but there's certainly more room to put a community senior center on that site than this site, if we say it's going to be close to the road, which is another question, but it's certainly our recommendation that the closer to the road, the better for visibility and access and, for every other reason. If the owner says, for some reason, no, I want frontage along Clark, or this is in serious consideration for public safety, that could change. So that's, kind of another question. But and then here we are, 8 East Street, up at the top. The caption is short and sweet, but basically says, here are the reasons we don't think this is going to work. We can go into more detail. We can put 75 parking spaces and probably should do that. Show how big 75 parking spaces are. So as we did for the other one. So we could do a little more work on this, but I think it'll make the point pretty clearly.
As Rini mentioned, the cost of renovating a building like that versus, building from scratch. I don't know if there's a way to calculate that.
Well, it's hard to calculate it. I mean, the layout of the existing building makes its use as a senior center a serious challenge. I mean, in a report, or certainly could go into more detail, it's been our experience. We've done a whole series of adaptive reuse projects. Generally, they're more expensive. As part of feasibility studies like this, we've looked at reuse versus new construction, and at best, they're the same cost. So can add more information. But the thought is some of this could be deferred to, later date, to a final report, to whatever.
Okay, thank you.
But certainly, it needs to be clear that this was seriously considered and that there's good reasons. Then there's Zero College, and you could, maybe, you have to tell us, locate it in the commercial zoning. What's advantageous about that is it's right on the road. Visibility for senior center is generally a good thing, but there's a lot of back and forth about the questions. Can it be in commercial zoning? One would think if there's a desire to put it there, could get whatever zoning relief is required. There's the cost of putting in the commercial zone versus pushing it back here, where the land might be cheaper, maybe it's free. And again, exactly where it's located, how it's laid out, that's not really the point of this. It's really to raise this question. Suppose there's a CVS right in front and a pizza place and a and you have a whole line of commercial street, entities, and all you get's a little sign saying that 350 feet back, there's a senior center. Is that too high a price to pay for staying out of the commercial zone? So it'd be great to get some input on that. And we're happy to dig in deeper on both options, but again, to understand what the constraints are. It's privately owned. What does the owner say? What's he willing to do or not do? And Ed, you weighed in on this question about the value of commercially zoned property for commercial entities. How does that stack up against its value for a senior center? So I don't know how to answer those questions, but I'm sorry, Ed, were you going to say something?
No.
Okay. So,
David, one of the discussions we had is, because we are very limited in commercial, to get the support of our voters in town to remove another potential commercial lot from our tax base would be, I think, not advantageous.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
my opinion. I don't know how anybody else feels, but that's.
Yeah. And on the other hand, having a proposed senior center 350 plus feet away from Route 10, completely obscured more or less by commercial entities, is non-advantageous as well for completely different reasons. One is, about money, the other isn't, or about value. So that's where, how do you compare apples and oranges?
Darcy has her hand up, David. So thank you, Darcy.
So is it easier for us to comment as we go along, or we're going to wait for all our comments till the end and then go back to the parcels?
Maybe it's fine. I mean, we've started this discussion going, and again, just wanting to make sure I can stay all day. You have to leave. We want to move on to the next week.
Okay, so then we could revisit this at a later date to get to the presentation we need to get to.
Yeah.
Okay.
And is this behind the scenes stuff? Is this something you want to think about? On this question?
I'm not sure I understand what you're asking, David.
Well, it is.
I mean, should
we have a discussion right now? I'd love to hear what people have to say as long as we leave time. So my thought is, Darcy, what's your sense of things?
Well, I was just looking at that. I mean, if we were to purchase the front commercial property, then, you have that corner where it's a little bit of a tough pull in, pull out area. But if we're in the back, I agree that the visibility is poor, but also if we have businesses all there, that adds that much more traffic coming out, which would really make that corner a very hard pull in, pull out for anybody. especially a senior.
Yeah, and it's never been a pro on our list that we developed earlier on for each site. It's never been a pro to have it access directly on Route 10. It's always been a con in our minds.
It's a con because of traffic.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah. And either way, certainly one would think, and maybe this is, talk to other municipal officials. Is there a traffic and parking department, signalization? What's their sense? Will it always be dangerous, or can it be signalized and marked to reduce the danger? So again, being on a busy road has ups and downs. The up is it's very visible. The downside is exactly what you're talking about. So how do you compare the pros and cons?
Yeah, so this is a state road, Route 10, so we would have to do any study, I guess, through them. Ed?
There are studies that have been done in the past. I don't know what the latest date is, but there have been studies over the years on the traffic on Route 10 in that area.
Okay.
And
go ahead, sorry.
It just depends on the type of study.
Right.
Yeah.
And it could be there isn't time for a study, but there are people who are familiar enough with traffic issues that they could throw out give us a really good sense of whether it could be dealt with. I mean, people who professionally, whether they're consultants or work in town, could give a first pass. Yeah, we can deal with this or not.
Okay, that's
okay. We'll keep going and okay. So, and the point is just, we took the names off of this. What are those black rectangles? Could be that, could be that, could be that. Some of these are a bit bigger. This was intended not to be a layout. We should have taken teen off because that grabs your eye to give a sense of what those black rectangles are. We are not proposing a black rectangle. We are proposing develop building plans where interior and exterior work together. So they're kind of captions on top that put this into context. As you say, hey, this is a really good site. Can you look at how we would develop it? We would develop site plans and building plans for that site for Southampton Senior Center. And then this is taking what was in the RFQ and discussions and the input from the questionnaire and some common sense and the sense that this is probably a good program. You had said 10,000 square feet. We're a little worried about whether you can get what you want in 10,000 square feet. So this is kind of rounded up. And on the site plans, we show footprints that are a little bit bigger. So this is the kind of thing that can continue to be fine-tuned. It doesn't need to, getting exact square footage down and exact programmatic elements aren't necessary for us to move forward, but incrementally we should refine this based on what we hear next week and continue to work with you. But this is for you. This is not for another town. And there we are. That's sort of bringing this up to date. So any other, Libby?
What's the difference between a fitness room and an exercise room?
Well, really, it's the size. And there are no set square footages in any of this. The idea is the fitness room can accommodate a bunch more people. So if you have 35 people, what's that?
Why would you have two rooms? I guess I don't know what the difference is.
Yeah, the difference in my mind is one has exercise equipment like treadmills or ellipticals or hand weights, and the other one is for exercise.
Yeah. No. And that's a good point. I mean, there are spaces that are essentially multi-use spaces, and there are spaces that aren't, and as soon as you get the equipment. So, this can be refined, and it's also to give you spaces of different sizes. So we're trying to juggle a number of different things here. And you have equipment. If there are only 2 pieces of equipment, you can actually wheel it into the closet to make room for yoga. If you have, because so much of the equipment now is on wheels and it's easy to reel back. If you say, no, we don't want to be doing that, and there are 8 pieces of equipment, then fine. You know, Janet, that's probably the answer to the question.
Yeah.
And then when we do layouts, we can show the equipment. All of these square footages can change. This is just a best guess at giving you long-term flexibility.
Audrey?
So at our last meeting, I believe we talked about how you were going to give us 3 different options, like a small, medium, large for our buildings based on what our square footage requirements are. Is there on what you're showing us now for the 3 different options, is there a square footage, for each that you envision? And the second part of this question is, which of our sites would accommodate which of those buildings?
Well, I don't know that you need small, medium, and large. In a lot of communities, they don't know what they need or want, and it's about cost and what'll fit. If the idea is we can focus in, and this is the program, and you think it's going to work for the next couple of decades or for the next 1 decade, and you may consider expanding it, you don't need small, medium, and large. I think the difference between, you could have a bigger building probably on any of the sites. It's just longer and thinner. And if you do the town hall site, there are more limits to expansion. So 1,000, 2,000, 2,500 square feet probably isn't a make or break. So maybe we see what happens on the 10th. We develop the program further. If you can say, yes, that's it, keep moving, that's great. If you say, well, we would actually love to hear, we heard of the community people want pickleball or whatever it is, we could do a small without pickleball, it may not be that, and a larger size with pickleball, or additional art rooms or this or that. So I would suggest tabling that question till we get more input.
Okay, so when we're looking at these different options of buildings, and I appreciate the fact that there aren't any names attached to the different rooms and we get to use our imagination. However, it's hard to envision, like we have listed here an 1,800 square foot dining room for 100 plus people. So I imagine that's the code, the standard for 100 people, you need 1,800 square feet. Whether or not an adjacent kitchen. Could you point out where that might be located in each of our 3 scenarios?
These, and maybe I haven't been clear, these are not options for your community center. The reason to show this is only one reason, to suggest what that black rectangle would be, because you could say, black rectangle, what's that? We don't have enough information to show options for you at the moment. We will come back to you with floor plan options absolutely for Southampton. I mean, that's obviously a reasonable expectation. It's too early in the process. There's really only one point on the next 3 pages. And I should, it's to say that we will develop floor plans for you. That's the point of this. And I'm sorry if I didn't make this clearer. These are not options for consideration. They're to just make the point that there are different sizes, there are different shapes. And as we move forward, we will take different ideas and develop them with you. Does that kind of make sense?
Sure. Maybe we should move on and focus more on the November 10th meeting.
Okay.
So David, you want to kind of take?
Yeah.
So we've started distributing the flyer. We have it in different locations. We've posted it on some of the Facebook pages. Jones has it promptly displayed at the senior center and at town hall. We have a sign in town that has the information displayed on the corner of Pomeroy Meadow and College Highway, which will be up until this weekend. So I think the word's getting out, right? Is everybody talking it up pretty much?
I've heard people talking it up.
Good.
And in hindsight, may have been better off not showing those floor plans. It's always a risk showing work in progress or conceptual stuff. It can raise more questions than it answers. So it may have been a mistake even putting it in, but hopefully, I mean, that was the intent. And 2 weeks from now, and we'll see if it's 2 weeks from now or a little bit further on, your question, Audrey, absolutely. We will walk you through where all of those programmatic spaces are. And conceivably, it's not small, medium, and large. Conceivably, it's 3 different plans for 3 different sites or 3 different plans for 1 site because there are options. And we'll walk you through in detail how those words and numbers are actually laid out. So that will be coming in the not too distant future.
So David, let me just ask real quick, is everybody good until 2:00 today?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So what this is a draft, and I want to emphasize draft, even though it doesn't say draft here, for what we could show and do a week from today. So the idea was, and who says what, and I would think, is this Janet, someone from the committee would do a preliminary introduction and then turn it over, and Devlin and I will both be there, but I would probably do most of the talking and pick up where you left off. Again, that can be, negotiated. Generally, that's how we do it, that you hired a consultant to take a leadership role. However, we are working for you. That's kind of what's been laid out. And then part 1, and some of what I'm going to show you is part of what's anticipated to be the project introduction. Then images, what could a new senior center be like? And then we have a number of activities that get people engaged, throwing out questions so we can get answers, and I'll walk you through all of that, and then open it up for discussion and questions, and we'll have flip charts and we'll take notes. So introduction, in background, here are the questions we are trying to answer and I'm sort of saying what I would say a week from today. What kinds of activities should be accommodated? We want to hear from you about what this would make this the very best senior center for you. And here are a range of different options that are typical of community centers, but we want to walk away from, again, this is for the 10th, walk away from this meeting and the subsequent work with a clear answer to these questions. And the options go on and on. There are 50 different kinds of activities and spaces that could be accommodated. What are your additional programming and activity ideas? And we will get to that question. So for the moment, I'm introducing one kind of question. How might a senior center be laid out? And what I'm going to show you are not plans for the Southampton Community Center. What I want to show you is the next stage.
Say senior center, please.
I'm sorry.
I know you keep falling into community center. I confuse the people next week.
No. That's a really bad thing to do. That's a really bad thing to do. It's even worse than saying city when it's a town and city. I'm going to run through this a whole series of times to make sure that doesn't happen. And thank you for pointing that out. So it could be a series of activity spaces around a open common area. It could be longer and thinner. If the site is long and thin, there are only 2 versions here. We don't know what the layout will be. It will depend on what we hear from you, and it will depend on the site. But this is how we represent ideas architecturally, so we can go from your desires to building plans that can be executed. And this is what I should have made clearer. And again, any of this, if you think this is confusing, it could come out. And what I just said is what I should have been clearer on in discussions with you. What might the forms and spaces look like? And there are a lot of different options: big spaces, small spaces, open spaces, and enclosed spaces, comfy corners, places for lots of people to gather. We would like to hear from you on what your vision of this senior center is. And there are, again, I'm going to practice this a little bit more. Once again, there are endless versions. What is your dream for your senior center? So we are now going to start the activities that I ran through. So when we do the introduction, we'll have spent a minute or two going through this. So we are going to pass out, and I'm not going to read all the way through this, but next week we'll kind of read through this, and we will pass out pens, we will pass out sticky notes, and everyone will have them. So here's our first question. Why did you decide to come this afternoon, and what do you want to accomplish? And all of these can be changed. Want to hear from you, not you a week from now, you on this Zoom. But let me run through this. Why don't I run through this, and then we can come back if you say, whoa, you left out some questions. Do we really need to answer this? So this is one question. Do you come to the existing senior center? What would bring you to a new senior center? So I think that's a critical question to hear from both sets of people. And hopefully we'll get people who never come as well as people who do come. What needs to happen to make this project successful? And this may or may not need this question, because there is a senior center, there's a commitment to a new senior center. We ask this question more often if there's a question about that, but still, money needs to be allocated. So it might be worth asking this question. And part of the point of asking this question is to enlist the people who are at this meeting in drumming up support. Because often the answers we get are drum up support. And then we can say, everybody has said drum up support. Because what happens here is we get the Post-it notes, and while they're doing the next one, we organize them. And almost always, if there are 53 people, there are only 3 answers to these questions or 4 answers to these questions, and we can distill out. So if most people end up saying, to make this successful, we need to build support, then it's really easy to say, absolutely. So we are relying on you as the process moves forward to help build up support for your senior center. And then what are your short-term and long-term goals for a senior center? So this is a new question for us. The last time we ran through this, the answers we got were so heartfelt. It amazed me about how desperate people were for a sense of community, engaging other people. So I was surprised at how effective this was at loosening people up. So those are the 4 questions we're thinking. And then maybe I'll just keep going, and then let's circle back to whether, yes, Libby.
So you're doing this without having any verbal discussion. My initial thought was that people are going to expect to go there and talk back and forth about what their questions were or what their comments are. So there's no outward discussion at all. So
you mean before answering?
Yeah.
Well, here's the thought. And again, we could do it differently, is to start out with this and not have discussion and get individual answers. Because what we see and what we hear is, if there are discussions, there are people who dominate the conversation. So the entire point of this is, in fact, not to have conversations, to have the people who are afraid to speak up. They're doing it with a pencil and paper. And then later on, there'll be opportunities. But
I think maybe you need to tell people that, because I think they're probably expecting to be able to vocalize something. And you could say, we're going to start this exercise so that people have a chance to write down and then we can talk about it, or something like that. I don't know.
And we would, after each one of these, then we would go through them and we would say, here is what we're seeing and hearing for question number 3. Anybody have any comments to make on that? So it's not as if we're cutting off all discussion, but the thought was later on to have more of an open floor, but in this early stage, have the introverts and the extroverts have the same standing. Again, what I'm saying is not the final answer. It's what we have found to be successful in the past. So question,
David, just
yep.
Reenie's had her hand up for a little bit, so let me just go ahead, Reenie. Are you muted? You're muted.
Yes, she is.
Yep.
I just wanted to agree wholeheartedly with your process, because I've done a lot of projects in senior centers, and I do find that seniors defer to the outspoken people to chime in and are reluctant to say things of their own. So I totally agree with that process, but I also think it should just be framed in the beginning. I just wanted to ask about the wording of one of the questions. I'm not sure which one it was, but it says, if you routinely come to the senior center, what do you hope to bring? I don't know if that's going to be, I think it should be a little bit more black and white. The question, like, what do you want to bring might be interpreted differently. Let's bring the exercise equipment. I mean, I think that it just has to be clear what you're asking, that last sentence, because I don't think that it's the right way.
This is the point. And in response to what you said, people of all ages, there are people who like to talk in public settings. This is true from teenagers and everybody. So it seems to be a pretty universal thing. What would you bring? What would
bring you?
What would bring you to a new senior center? Attract you to a new center? What would make you come to? Maybe it should be what would make you come
to a new senior center. I mean, I just don't know if that, I don't know, what would bring you to a new senior center?
Yeah.
I don't know. I just thought that it might, the question, just the wording of it, just.
No, what would attract you?
Yeah.
I think attract certainly is better than bring. You're right. Bring is not
that's
good.
All. It was just a phrasing thing.
No, a really good point. This is why we're talking about this. So then this is about priorities, and we could have 18 priorities or 8 priorities. I mean, 12 seemed about right, and I'm not 100% sure these are exactly the right ones. For example, we have pickleball. I don't know that we should, probably take that out, or we could leave it in. I wonder if this is something we could talk about this now. The other thing is people could think about this and just let us know. We're happy to swap these out. I'm not sure these are all the best pictures. We can probably get better pictures. But anyone have any immediate reaction to this?
A pickleball room could be used for volleyball. It could be used for other activities. So it's not just a dedicated pickleball room. And I think, so maybe not just so specific.
Yeah. And maybe it's sport. I'm sorry, what?
Like a racket sport room or something like that.
Or it could be active fitness. There's yoga mats, and then there's active. And so cardio and weight, that's fixed, flexible, that's yoga. And then, maybe it's just active activities, which requires more room, depending on what the activities are. So what do you think about that, about just changing the word to active?
Or multi-use,
Or gym, something with the word gym.
That's what I was thinking, like an indoor activities, like we have the flexible multi-purpose room, more of a flexible indoor activity room for group exercise.
More like physical activity versus.
Yeah.
I think,
Flexible physical activity room. And
I think
hold
when you
on.
say gym, people think of a huge space.
Yeah, I'd like to stay away from gymnasium if we could. I mean,
Yeah.
Because we had gymnasium and took it out because gymnasium starts to suggest basketball and quite a large room. So active physical activity spaces. And then we'll hear if 40 people say I want racket sports, well, we should plan around that. If 2 people say that, then it changes that. Okay, so that will change.
how do you get feedback on this? Is there something that follows this after you get your? Because if you just said, if people say this, then when do the people get to say what you're referring to?
Wait, I'm sorry. You're talking about feedback from.
You just said, well, if people say, I'd like this kind of a room. So are you're right now, you're just kind of prioritizing them. So is there another step in this? I guess is what I'm asking after the priority.
No, really the prior, and then we will go through, and I think we can do that in real time. It may be difficult. Some of it depends on how many people are there. Sometimes what we'll do is if there are too many to compile there and then, which may be the case, we'll do a real quick run through and say, we're seeing more or less half the people are saying that this is their number one choice. If we can draw some conclusions, we'll try and bring those up for discussion. If people are all over the place, then what we will do is after the fact, the next day or 2 or 3, we will compile these so it's sort of scientific. So this is numerical. I mean, we will get numbered answers to this.
Right, but I get what Janet's saying though, in that like if we just have a label, and just for an example, we have it labeled as pickleball and we know we're not going to do that. But if we don't have the discussion of, what would somebody else want that to be, then it will never make it into the priority list. Does that make sense?
There will be a space to write in something else.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I should have said that. And maybe I should have included forms. I don't know, Devlin, if we have something we've used before. So that's sort of missing in this. And thank you. That's a good question. So once we, tie this down, there'll be, let's say we keep the 12 options and on the bottom, it will say what else or something like that.
A write-in, like when
no.
get to write in and candidate.
That's exactly right. And,
we've in Orleans, we did a write-in at the bottom right corner for the 12 option. So
good.
Yeah. And also, so absolutely there will be the opportunity to do that. Well, any other comments on this, logistical questions or about the, what's up here? And if there's a framework, if you want to take a look at this and get back to us, get back to Janet and Andrew in the next few days, and you can pass that on, we can swap this out.
Do we have this yet?
I'm sorry, what?
We don't have this yet. No, we don't. We're seeing it for the first time.
Yeah. And then Janet, I passed it on to you and Andrew yesterday afternoon.
Oh, I missed it then. I'm sorry.
Yeah, because I sent what I showed 15 minutes ago, I passed on, and this I'm 99% sure. Occasionally I won't press send, but I try and I think that did go out.
Okay. I remember seeing the other one. I don't remember. Oh,
yeah. I can send it again. I know it's easy to miss them. And usually I'm reminded if I don't press send because it's still lingering there on my screen. Okay, and I had thought this.
I did see it. I have it now. I'm sorry, I missed it somehow.
Yeah, that's
thousands of emails. I guess. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, at least the thought was that people could have looked at this, but it's not so dense or so long. And then It's a week from today, but there are a couple of days to fine tune all of this.
I'll get that forwarded out to everybody.
Yeah. And then, and I'm not sure what the best way to ask this question. And I think what we had talked about was not asking people to pick sites, but to talk about the, which is better, closer to town or further away. Now, there are not unlimited options. This group has scoured the town for sites. And I think, again, we talked about getting input on this. Seemed like breaking into groups might be useful for this, because it is a kind of fundamental question. If people say, I don't like center of town, there's no place to park and there's traffic, 79, 89 Clark, it's on a nice country road. I like that idea. Zero College, right on a main street. I love that, or I hate that. Do we want that level of commentary or not? What do you think about this question?
Could we just rate, because we only have a few sites, could we just rate those, prioritize those for each person like you did on the previous question for the space? What would be your best location? What would be your most undesirable? And then compile those numbers, because we don't have that many.
Yeah.
They aren't going to know where they are. Means you might not know where Zero College Highway is. And I think that's a lot of time. Maybe it's,
okay.
Is it far away, outside the town center or in the town center? What your question here? I'm concerned somebody's going to be like, all right, where's 80th Street? And they're going to go into those kind of questions. And yeah, I don't know.
Because, and that's really a legitimate concern. And what, asking people to prioritize them, if the one that gets the most votes ends up having wetlands on it and being taken off the table, it makes people wonder, well, why did you even ask me? So I guess the thought was just to ask the more general question, but illustrate it with specific sites. And even if they may not know where Zero College is, but what they do know is it's a ways from the center of town, and it's on College Highway. And then we could get input to questions. People can say, I don't want to be on College Highway. It's hard enough for me to make a left turn, blah, 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 whatever it is.
I'm just wondering for some of these to help clarity. If we put under 210 College Highway, we put parentheses Town Hall, or 8 East Street, parentheses Old Town Hall Police Station, just so people, if they don't know the street number.
And then the other ones say privately owned. Don't list the homeowner or the property owner. I don't think we should.
Yeah.
But one of the things we could do from the last document I showed you, the ones in the center, we located those and there were street names. So one thing to do is to show this, the same thing I showed, 20 minutes, and then zoom in so people have a much better sense of where the sites are, and then say, for the moment, we're not sure which are viable. So we're not asking you today to pick your favorite one because it might not be viable, but we are asking for your general issues, concerns, and sense of where it should be.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
Or even just when you're explaining what 210 College Highway is, where you are right now.
Yeah.
Just so that.
Can I ask a question?
Of course. Rini?
Hang on a second. I'm having computer problems. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Yep, you're good.
Can you hear me? I strongly disagree with asking the people on the date on November 11th about their opinion about these sites. I think that what should be said is that this committee has worked very hard to identify potential sites. And right now we're evaluating the feasibility of these particular sites. I think to ask people their opinion about these sites at this particular time would be a huge mistake.
Well, let me ask you a question. At least the thought was is to have what you're saying as the preamble and not ask their opinions of these particular sites as much as on the general location, and really say, it's too early to ask you your opinion of the sites, but the general location, the number one question being, do you really want to be right there in the center of the town, or would you prefer not to?
I just disagree.
Okay.
We should be asking them. I think we just have to say, these are the sites that are being evaluated. This is the point of this feasibility committee. We've only started a month or 2 months ago at the most. And I personally think that it would be a big mistake to ask a group of people to come together and then ask them, where do they want this to be? I just think this isn't the forum for that specific. People can disagree with me, but I just think that it would be a big mistake because we don't have enough data on the sites themselves to be able to say, if everybody jumps on to one particular site and then it ends up not even like the town hall, and then it not even ends up being a viable site, I think it's going to start dividing the town around where it should be.
I think the committee already picked the sites. I think this particular thing is the programming and what would happen at the center, not where it's going to be.
We could take this completely off the table.
I think it's fine to identify what the committee is looking at with you on the sites. These are the sites that are being evaluated for the feasibility of having a senior center there. But I think to ask residents, which would you prefer? They don't have enough information, and neither do we right now.
There's only one site out of town on this map, out of the center. So it's either like that one site versus all the other ones that are in town. So
I think all of the sites have their own uniqueness. I think that even though they're clustered, the old town hall is very, very different than Clark Street.
Well, one way to do this is to not pose a specific question. So one thing to do is not talk about site at all. There's site options that are being considered. Some may become off the table, essentially saying, don't ask about us about the sites at all, and we're not going to talk about it. Not that we would phrase it quite that way. Another way to do it is in the kind of introductory stuff to show these sites and say, Maureen, more or less what you said. We're evaluating whether they're, which ones are feasible. There's a lot of investigations that need to be done. It's way too early to make any kinds of decisions, but we wanted to show these to you. And if you had any questions or thoughts, we'd love to hear them. And that may be asking too much, but that's another way.
I agreed with you all up until the last statement.
The question, yes.
Okay.
I know Audrey has her hand up too. Can we just let Audrey share what she's thinking?
The only thing that I would like to know from the meeting relative to the sites is people's opinions and experiences of whether to have the new senior center directly on Route 10 or not. And I think we've got a great selection of, almost 50-50 of sites that you'd either have to get to it directly off from Route 10 or not. And it's just my opinion, and it's only my opinion. I don't want it on Route 10, but I'd like to know what everybody else thought.
But the problem is right now we might not have a single site on Route 10 because right now the Bree family is saying that they're putting a street down and we don't even know where they're offering a potential senior center. The town hall had a lot of ledge, and that's why the public safety complex, it cost $1 million to excavate the property for where they wanted it. That might not pan out. And none of the other sites are on Route 10. So we might be asking them, do you want to be on Route 10 or not, and not have a single property that ends up being on Route 10. So I just think that if we just say, these are the sites that are being looked at, the committee's done a lot of work to pare this down, and we're looking to see which one ends up being the most feasible. I think that we have to be careful what we tell the public or ask for their input on when we can't deliver what they might want.
Yeah, but again, I'm not saying that what you're saying isn't exactly on target, but we often ask questions without the promise that we can deliver them. The same thing's true with the program. If people say absolutely, we want to have paddleball, but the budget doesn't allow, we can't deliver. And my sense is if somebody says, I really want it on Route 10 and the sites disappear and we have another meeting in 2 months, I don't think anyone would say, I wanted it on Route 10. How come it's not on Route 10? So I'm not sure there's as much of a landmine as you're thinking. However, again, I will defer. I mean, we can do this however, people feel that we should do it.
I just think we should be cautious. The history is that the public safety complex has had a lot of problems over 20 years of its existence because they wanted to put it on a particular site that cost $1 million more. And then they also wanted bells and whistles to a building that actually was too expensive. So the town didn't support it. So I just think I'm just very cautious about messaging. That's all. I think that we don't want anything but total support for this project. And I think that anything and location and contents have been dividing issues in the past. So that's all. I mean, if people think that it's better to ask them their opinion, that's fine. I'm just worried that it's going to, people will go down a path and then we won't get their support if something different happens.
Libby?
I do agree with Maureen. I'm thinking that maybe this slide is something that gets moved up in the front and Janet just mentions these are the ones that we're considering and on. Don't ask any questions. And then, because the focus of this, I think what we've indicated, the focus of the November 10th meeting is to get input on what they want in the senior center. And so when we come back to them and we can explain why this site worked or this one didn't, then we have that discussion and maybe we move it. But I agree with Maureen. So
yeah, I mean,
I just want to
go ahead, Joan.
I just wanted to say, I don't think we're going to have enough room to break into groups and discuss things. I think it's going to be, I hope we even have enough chairs. We have to talk about, are we having seating for 75 people or are we putting tables and are we having food? I mean, there's a lot of other things that I wouldn't be sitting in group discussing where to have the center. I mean, I don't think that's part of that day's events.
To break into groups, yeah. So I think the break into groups is definitely a discussion at this time. Is they don't have the information we have to have those discussions.
Yeah. Okay, and there are two somewhat separate issues. There's the question on the sites and the breaking into groups, and if breaking into groups doesn't work, obviously that's not something we should do. Is there a consensus to make a discussion of the sites? Just an introduction, these are under consideration. There's a lot of due diligence that needs to be done and move on without asking for any input. Is that how we want to do this?
Yes, I feel that's how we should do it because we can always, if we have one that's on College Highway down the road and one's on a side street, then we can ask the question at that point later down the road, not at this meeting.
Because I can see them saying, 16 East Street, that's a great location. I think that's right in the park. It's perfect. And then we go back to them and say, but we have no way of getting to it. So, I think those are setting ourselves up a little bit.
Okay, then we will do that and we'll revise this and send it back out just to make sure that what we're showing and what I'm saying and the captions at the top are meant to, sort of how the choreography is being done. Okay, I think that's clear. And then open discussion and questions. So it may be, and there's always the question of how much we have these planned activities. And if you have a talkative group, the entire time could be spent with open discussion and questions. But if we're saying we're taking out this, we're doing this, we're doing we really have only two, I'm sorry, I'm going to go back here, 2 input activities if
the group discussions
about site. So if 3.1, 3.2, there's another way. If this is about program, we could have another activity, but I'm not sure it makes sense because if it's primarily about program, maybe we do the introduction, we do these activities, we compile them in real time so we can say that this is what we're hearing, ask people if they have any questions, and then go, what are your thoughts on? And the thought was to put these up, and these can be added, subtracted. We go through these questions. We don't go through them one by one, but we say, we want to hear from you. And these are the questions we're interested in hearing you on, from you on, and then open the floor for discussion. And, you know, the other thing is to go through these one by one. We can add them, we can subtract them.
Would always start out with a positive. What are your favorite things about the current situations? And then go to what are the shortcomings? That's
yes.
One stuff. So
I think it's fine to open it up for discussion like this. Then you're going to hear from people, you know, and probably the people who like to talk are going to be the ones who do talk the most. But I agree with this.
Yeah. And sometimes the value, and I hear you that you no way to accommodate this. There are people who are very talkative in a group of 5 or 6 and are afraid to say something in a group of 45 or 55. But with the Post-it notes, everybody will weigh in. With the, you know, list in their order, everyone will have a chance to weigh in. And then I guess it'll just get to the point, the people who want to dominate the conversation will kind of dominate the conversation. And this is, it may be Joan, maybe you're the one to do this, be the school marm. Gladys, we have heard from you. We should give someone else a chance. I don't know, may not be a problem.
I can handle that.
Okay, and it may not be necessary, you know, or it may be, Sylvia, you were just telling me last week that blah, 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 blah. Would you mind sharing that with the group? So maybe you can take the, and so I think probably Devlin will write stuff down. I'll kind of be master of ceremonies, but Joan, I would love to split some of those duties with you, you know, if you're up for it. Crowd wrangler, wrangle those seniors.
Can you go back to the first slide? Because we didn't really establish who's saying what. Is Janet or Joan giving the introduction, part 1, and who's doing part 2?
I would like to volunteer to do the project introduction as the chair of the committee.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and if Andrew is able to make it collectively do that with him, it'd be kind of like a little bit of a history of what we've done to date and how we got where we are. And, you know, I think Jones knows the people in the room probably best of all. And so to lead the discussion and questions and to manage the, you know, the folks in the room, I think this, Janet speaking, is my preference.
Wait. Could you? So I think maybe we'll break this up into a few more parts. So you're saying maybe the welcome and project introduction is, this is a little bit confusing. What's written here for number 1. Janet, you would lead off. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
Okay. And then
people feel differently. That's just me speaking.
That's how it should be. So what's my thought?
Is everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Okay. And then I'm sorry, there's a mention of Joan. Where is she? Or Joan, are you speaking up front as well?
Not till the end. I mean, I think Janet's going to introduce you, and
okay, that's fine.
And
okay.
part 4, Joan can help, you know, lead that discussion, and anybody else that, if somebody else wants to volunteer to do that along with her, that would be great as well.
Okay, at the end. Okay. Okay, so maybe I'll break this up into Janet, your introduction, and then and I think I'll revise this a little bit, because I think then I could do a different kind of introduction, which isn't about you know, it's about the process. It's about what you hired us to do. Yeah. So Janet, you'll talk about what they hired you to do. hired you to do. And then then I'll pick up the process and like pictures. So we'll go through, some of this stuff to illustrate the steps along the way. And maybe show in some way, like a final report. I don't know if there's a way to illustrate that, that the end product of this will be a final report making recommendations. And well, essentially to the extent that we have to produce a plan, we'll note, Janet, you can talk about the plan, and we're quoting from from what we're required to do, and then we can talk about you can talk about it from a procedural point of view, and we can talk about it from an architectural point of view. The information we need to do a plan. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes, you're going to use the television screen in your computer and project this. Is that correct?
Yes, and that's what I was asking about. How I think it was in my note to Janet that yes,
yes.
That was
we
one
have
of the
a large screen TV, and we have the cable, and I'm sure you have what you need. Okay. I just want to make sure what we're looking at.
Yeah, can we maybe move out of this, David, share screen and get everybody's, because I think there's a lot of logistics. We have to
I'm going to stop sharing.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense, because the logistics of the day. What do you need from us? You can list that out.
So you're talking to me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
From us?
And so you have a screen. Did I hear you say that?
TV, large screen TV.
And how big?
60, I don't know. It's big.
Will that be big enough?
I think it's more like probably a 72 or 80.
Thank you, Ed.
You're
so
welcome.
How does it compare with that white board behind you, Ed?
It's a lot smaller than that.
No, it's bigger than that.
The TV?
The TV is bigger than that. Hang on, I'll be back. It's not a big trip.
Okay.
Down the hallway.
Okay.
We never use it, so I forget what it looks like, I guess. Maybe that's it.
Okay. Because I think the size of that whiteboard, don't want it much smaller, because then if you're in the back, you can't see anything or read anything. We have a screen probably about the size of that whiteboard that we can bring. If your monitor is significantly smaller, it's certainly easier for us if we can use the monitor. And Joan, that's a question for you. Is it big enough so the people you anticipate being there can see it? And that's all that really matters. You're muted.
Muted, Joan. Yep.
Sorry. I think the screen is big enough. We used it for another program in April. I believe it's big enough.
Yeah, the students used it for their class, and I thought it was, you could see it from the other side of the room pretty well.
Okay. We would rather ask the question and have it get a thumbs up than show up and nobody can see stuff. Okay, so we'll bring a laptop and we'll bring it on a thumb drive, and one way or another that will work, and we'll come early and set that up. I'm assuming that, we do a lot of setting up of chairs and tables. It would be great if that's done before we get there.
That'll be definitely done before you come.
Okay.
We have probably the round tables aren't going to be.
They're gone. The round tables we haven't used in a couple of years, believe it or not.
With COVID, I knew they were new.
So we couldn't take down every single table. We could leave out maybe one for exhibiting things or putting papers out on it, and then just set up chairs.
We're going to write Post-it notes. I think they need to have something to lean on. That's just my.
We have pieces of cardboard. We give everybody a piece of cardboard. So you don't necessarily need tables. We're not laying stuff out on tables, so up to you. What we don't like about tables is it distances people. From our point of view, the closer people are, the more engaged they are. And if you assume, Devlin, right, we give everybody a piece of cardboard. Yeah. So up to you. If people feel more comfortable at tables, that's fine, but we don't need them.
Any other thoughts from anybody else?
We have more room for chairs without the tables.
Yeah, there's definitely more room. So we supposedly have a building code limit us to 75 people. So we'll be thrilled if we approach 75 people. So, and how many chairs do you have, Joan?
I'll have to count. I believe there's at least 60, and we probably can get some from the select board room if we needed them.
A whole bunch downstairs.
I know there's folding chairs too. So yeah, we have plenty of chairs, but we won't put 75, maybe 50 or 60, and then it'll be standing room, I would think.
Well, I'm only going to sell tickets, and that's going to go towards the fundraiser.
A good fundraiser. Very good at Norris. That's a great idea.
We are set. So how big was the screen?
70.
And how big is the whiteboard behind you?
Oh, good Lord.
Man, this is a demanding group.
From fingertip to fingertip is 72. So I'm just going to do this.
Okay.
But Ed's on the town payroll.
Okay.
So put that guy to work.
So this one's probably around a 64, 65.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Just
And Joan pretty much while you were gone verified. And I think Maureen said it's big enough.
There we go.
That's what matters. So if you say it's big,
it'll work.
Yeah.
we just wanted them to walk up and down the steps a couple times.
Yeah. And you know what? Only, we'll show those questions on the screen, but we'll read them aloud. So this is not, intensive. As long as someone doesn't have both hearing and seeing problems, we should be fine. We'll do double duty to engage people. We do find the visuals are useful to go along with the voice. And certainly if we're showing pictures, that's the essential one where we want people to see it.
I don't know how, I know Joan made the comment standing room, but I'd like to be able to accommodate people, everybody have a seat. If we're there for a couple hours, I think, personally, that's just my opinion, that people should have a place to sit and not be expected to stand to participate.
We have plenty of chairs.
Okay. So.
And is the fire commissioner going to stick his nose in and close the joint down if there's a couple extra people?
Only if someone at the meeting calls him.
I will.
Okay.
Well,
Okay.
if people standing out in the parking lot, then we know we definitely need a new senior center. So my other question, is it helpful to have give people name tags to put their names up?
Yeah. And Devlin, do we have name tags?
Yeah. Fritz handed them out. We didn't.
And Joan, you do as well? Okay. Because sometimes we bring them, sometimes we don't. So name tags are good. Refreshments.
I mean, we can have water. I mean, I don't know that we need food at 3:00 in the afternoon, but definitely water and things. I don't know, what do other people feel on that?
Water's good.
Yeah.
I feel if we get, food and stuff, especially with people trying to hold Post-its and cardboard and a drink and food and everything else, it might be a little difficult.
Yeah, without tables. So I think it is tough, but.
Okay. And we found if you want to get the men, a keg of beer really comes in handy, and wine for the ladies. So it's not part of our budget, but you might.
Yeah, we have, the only time we could apply for a license is at the select board meeting that night. So it's kind of.
Yeah.
So.
You know what? I forget there may be a television audience out there. So I just do want to note that I'm kidding, just if anyone, so don't put that in the meeting minutes. But in all seriousness, we do want to create an environment in any reasonable way where people feel free to talk.
And do we record this or not? You don't say don't record. Is that?
It's hard to
capture
because there isn't a single camera angle.
And I think people would be awkward, maybe less apt to speak if they thought they were being recorded as well.
Very
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah, and we'll take a few pictures, try and do it not so to make people uptight, but part of like a final report and steps along the way is to document this. We want to have a series of pictures of, what was done. So everyone understands there's due diligence, big crowd, lots of feedback. So we'll do that. Oh, I love this light, but certain times of the day, I don't
So
know.
any other logistics that we haven't covered? So what time will you guys arrive on Thursday?
So it starts at 3:00. So, I don't know, 2:30, something like that. I don't think if we came at 2:30, we'd probably by 2:35 be ready to go.
So I can be there at 2 to help set up, Joan. Anybody else available earlier to Darcy? Okay.
I can come earlier to help set up and then I have to scoot out. I have an appointment and then I'll scoot
If
back.
we're just setting up chairs, we have a group that meets at 11 o'clock and I can just have the group help set up chairs. They'll be here. We just, if you want to come in at 2:15 just to make sure it's enough. But I would say that we'll probably set up the chairs at 12 when the group is here, because then it's a lot easier.
Okay.
One of the things we find is that often people will sit down from the back moving forward. So Janet, when I start talking, the entire front row is empty. I mean, I always encourage people to come closer. And Joan, maybe you're the one to do that. Because you've built a trusting relationship, but we really want to have people, we don't bite and we want to be inclusive and, we want to have people gathered together. I think that's really useful. So anything we can do. Now, when I go to things, I usually stand in the back, as far back as I can get. So I understand that inclination, but, that would be good.
Let me ask, is the van available, Joan? Has anybody requested to be picked up by the van for the session?
Not yet.
Not yet.
I don't know that it's available. I'll have to check the book.
Okay.
But
And as far as we have,
there's
I mean, how many parking spots do we have? So town hall is still open at 3:00.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And we have an activity going on, so there may only be 15 spaces, but we can use the upper parking lot. We can use the driveway.
When is the activity over?
So I have to meet with them today. They can end at 2:30 if that's what we need them to do. They want to stay for the program anyway.
Yeah, I think if the activity, I don't know, just it would make sense if maybe the activity ended by 2, so we could get in and get set up and get the waters out.
It'll be set up, just so you know.
We could also use the church parking.
It's a possibility, but it's not a convenient possibility. I mean, it's better than.
The day they have the buses here, the walk to school, they use the parking lot at the church. They use the Maple Street.
We're talking about our senior population. That's not the walk to Norris.
Yeah, but I was referring to the committee could always park at the church.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That's what I was just gonna say. I could park over at the church and walk over.
Yeah, I can park over there too.
You had mentioned the van, the availability of the van. Would it be worthwhile to advertise a shuttle from the church parking to the senior center?
Let me just see if it's available first.
Okay.
What day is that? That's the 10th.
I mean, we should have a problem like parking.
That'll be a best case scenario.
Right.
Doing a good job reaching out to other folks. Are you getting good responses? And we are the marketing committee for the program, so.
The bus is not available at 3:00. It's in Springfield.
Okay, so it's not available at 2:30 either, chances are.
Correct.
Okay. All right, so there's no van available, so.
So we have fewer activities that we sometimes do. And then sometimes there's like very little time at the end for discussion. So probably this is good. It's not just the entire time people like talking. So I think we have a pretty good balance and would keep people engaged. And we'll have discussion points along the way as we have like some preliminary results from what we're hearing. And Joan, it sounds like it's a relatively, I mean, different people are different, but a talkative group. And given the opportunity to address these questions, we're likely to hear, they're likely to be engaged and speak up. Is that a reasonable assumption?
I hope so. I mean, you know, they do when they're playing cards, but I don't know about if they're put on the spot, how they're gonna, I mean, I can't make a promise. No, that's fine.
And if you talk during bingo, they're pretty vocal too.
Yeah.
Should we post that flyer at the pickleball court? I was there yesterday. I didn't see anything.
We didn't post. I mean, it's not weather resistant. I've sent it to my pickleball list, and I'll send it again. We've already distributed it at the pickleball. The
right, but there's other people that play. I was there last night, and 4 or 5 other people showed up who might attend.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to spread the word, but I mean, it's really, I mean, it's not weather resistant, right? So,
how long is this meeting, David? What's your expectation?
Well, what did we? I should know this because I was asking myself the same question. Are we saying 3 to 5 or?
That's kind of what we've said, I think.
Yeah. I mean, that is a long time. I mean, and it's fine to say 3 to 5, and when it goes 3 to 5, that's fine. It may be 3 to by 4:30. People sort of played themselves out, which is okay as well.
Yeah. I don't think it'll go longer than 2 hours, but it may go shorter than 2 hours.
Yeah.
Don't forget the clocks turn this weekend. I don't think people are going to stick around if it gets dark.
Yeah. I thought they got rid of daylight saving times, but not yet.
Starting next year.
Yeah. I was in my mind that we hadn't, but that's the case.
I wish.
You know, and Devlin, you and I can talk about different ways to entertain the crowds if they, you know, and you know, really try. We try to be kind of entertaining and kind of fun and get a few laughs along the way. And a good time is had by all, and not be too dour and you know, having fun is good. That loosens people up.
I don't know. This is a pretty dour group right here. No, hardly.
Yeah.
The good support from this group.
Yeah.
Anything else that we haven't covered for Thursday?
Yeah. So we can send updates on you know, just the things we've talked about, the reorganizations, and get clarity in some of the changes and questions. We'll send that back out, and you know, maybe I think to talk about adding a little bit of material and do a review on that. We can stay in touch on that, you know, on next week, and then so we're pretty much set, other than communication back and forth. Is that safe to say? For next week?
I hope so, yes. I
mean, and you're going to send that out, maybe pass it on, and people can take another look at it and get back to us. And then,
I've just sent it out.
Okay, and then we'll
revise it, right?
Are you going to revise it again or no?
Yeah. You know,
more input
so give comments. If you have comments, and then we'll revise it. If we have to revise it again, that's fine as well. And then there's the bigger picture question about moving forward on site, so we can move. We'll keep, you know, on these sites. So we have a whole bunch of questions, and a question is, how do we get direction from this group? And 2 sites are more, you could say, problematic, because I think we need input on wetlands and the owner on Clark Street. You know, what are next steps? I mean, can we get some direction on those? And there's some good questions, but can we get directions that says, you know, don't look at 79 Clark right now, look at 89 Clark because it's wider or whatever you want to tell us. And if you need more information from us to give us direction, ask those questions. We want to keep we want to keep this moving forward.
So can I ask Rini, David, at this point to maybe give us a public safety complex update, because that may have some impact on this question. If I don't know if there's anything up to date, Rini, that would impact any of our choices.
Yeah. At the last meeting, we had a presentation or conversation with the Williamsburg Public Safety Complex representative, who gave us, some really good information about their process, because they're one step ahead. They knocked down an existing school and are building a public safety complex on that site in the center of Williamsburg. But it was really helpful to learn about their process and funding and that sort of thing. Right now, the RFQ is out, and Ed can give an update on that. It's due back, I think, before too long. And then we all went, a lot of us went to visit South Hadley Public Safety Complex and got a really good tour with a lot of detail about it. And I think Chief Workman is setting up another field trip to Hadley Public Safety Complex. So I think that's it. Ed, when are the RFQs due back for this public safety complex?
Today at 1.
Okay.
And when will you have a architect selected? This is for architect, right?
Yeah, we have a meeting on Monday. Is the next public safety complex meeting at 4:30. So I don't know what the plan will be between. Obviously, we'll be discussing any proposals we get and making a decision about how to process those. Probably a similar process to what we went through.
Yeah.
So I know, and you're asking us to give you feedback back on our preferences in property. I guess my question is, I think, and this is just me, I guess I was hoping that you would kind of help us to come to some of those conclusions, that maybe this land is too narrow, maybe this is too much ledge. I don't know how everybody else, what the expectation was.
I was hoping it would be a collaborative discussion between Abacus and us, with a little bit of rundown. Well, this one has wetlands, or this one, like we would come to that decision of priority 1, priority 2, priority 3, based on a collaborative discussion.
Yeah.
I have a question for Rini. When you had said that the public safety, their original location was going to be very expensive, that was behind the present fire station?
Yes, the original plan, and I wasn't, part of any discussion. It was quite a while ago. The original plan was it would take $1 million worth of excavation work to put it where they wanted to put it, and then what was included in the actual complex made it also very expensive. So I think they went to the voters with, at the time, it might have been 2015 or thereabouts, about a $13 million project. Is that what your understanding is, Ed?
Yes.
Yeah.
But again, it was before my time too. So
yeah.
Do we have?
Go ahead.
Do we have documentation of where the ledge was, and maybe we could get some of that information to see if it's over, maybe if they were building way up, it wouldn't affect us, but it might affect us as far as septic and building design, if they have that information to share.
I'm pretty sure you have that, don't you, David? And also, don't forget, after that period of time, the town voted to buy land further up from the site in order to make sure there was room for a new septic system. That was the intent.
Yeah.
Of the purchase. That was the intent of the purchase at the time. I should say that. Yeah.
So one thing to do is, the easiest sites to move forward on are 79 and 89 Clark, because they seem pretty basic and straightforward. They're next to each other. 89 has a wider throat, not clear why I think I'm remembering correctly, why you would do a narrow site rather than a wider site. We could, develop a conceptual building plan and site layout that aren't just like test flips and aren't just a black rectangle, that test out that site as the first step forward. I think we need more input on both college highway sites about this, the 300-foot setback on one, where, you know, whether it's got to be further back or not, or how you see the trade-offs. And on the other, on the town hall site, I think from conservation, you know, we've made, it's not unreasonable to believe that we could build on the disturbed area. But we'd want confirmation of that, because could be completely wrong. You're wrong on that. So at least know that there isn't some huge hurdle. So both of those sites, I think we need more information from you. But from Clark Street, we could move forward. And to a certain extent, we develop a building plan for that. We could that reflects your program, not a black rectangle or some other town. We could relocate that to other sites and move incrementally forward to test those out. I'm sort of thinking aloud here. What we don't want to do is stop. So that would be my thought about what we do next. What's reasonable for you to ask us to do right now, and what we're asking you to do to help us move forward productively.
David, do you need more information from us, specific information like what Darcy just said about staying away from the ledge? But I mean, we need to let the voters know that, you know, if Clark Street, like you said, is, is preferred, what was the holdup and where is the problem with the town hall site? Just because, of course, it's, town owned. And have you gotten information from the LaBries in terms of if they are going to sell land for a senior center, where are they offering this? Because I don't think I've heard that yet. Like, what other information do you need from us to move forward so that we can have that collaborative discussion
on
any of the sites?
Yeah,
particularly
the number one question we have is there anything that would make this site impossible,
right? Okay.
Or highly, unlikely? So town hall, it's really first and foremost, it's about wetland, because Conservation Commission could say, we're never going to approve a senior center where you've shown that black rectangle.
Which site are you referring to as town hall?
Where the fire station is.
The fire station. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry. I should refer to the address. But
isn't the biggest question there that we're demolishing? Are you showing it in the location of the existing fire station?
Yes. So
that's a big question.
When I'm referring to that site, what we're assuming, and now I close the document, is there are three properties here from what we see. One is a sort of part of town hall. There's the fire station, and there's the additional property. That is one site for planning purposes, and that's what we showed. Some of it seems really unbuildable because it's too steep. So we've located very preliminarily the senior center in the disturbed area, and then the parking in the flatter area. So the number one question is if conservation or any other entity in town would say, no, we are never going to approve that. Yeah. So thank you for doing that. Is there any approving entity who would say, we will never allow you to put the community center there? If they said, yes, that's a reasonable assumption.
You just said it again.
Senior center, repeat after me.
Okay.
We're
You're getting a shock collar for next Thursday there, Dave.
It's a buck every time you say community, you got to put a buck in the jar.
Yeah. No. I'm Devlin, please work with me. Give me an electric shock.
Yeah. I have a dog collar if you'd like.
Senior center.
There is a lot of wetlands north on that site, on the town-owned property. There's a lot of wetlands. So
right here,
I think that your map is south of that area, but point well taken. The conservation.
I'll back up to that where you just were. Does that assume that the fire station is demolished?
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
That's the biggest question on this site, because
why?
we can't do anything without the public safety.
The historical commission has already voted in favor of demolishing it if it was determined. Now, again, that was through the public safety complex meeting, but that's what the historical commission passed along to the public safety complex, that they were willing this time around, they weren't last time around, to demolish the building.
Well, willing is one thing, but let me just say one thing about this. If the building were to go where the parking lot is now shown, okay, the fire department and the ambulance can still run till that's done and it can be demolished. However, if you're putting the building on the existing site of that fire EMS station, we now will have to, the additional cost, and have to find a temporary home for them.
Yeah, good point.
And so,
in addition, we need to do a soil test underneath the fire station to see if there's been
contaminants.
Yeah, and we, you know, some of these issues we talked about, doing a phase 1 environmental site assessment, and really good point about the fire station. It at just a very preliminary level, ultimately having the senior center on the lower part of the site seems more advantageous in terms of having a presence, in terms of access. I mean, we haven't really looked at this, and what you've noted is a really good point. But certainly as a first pass, it seemed like fire station location seemed like a really good senior center location. So these are the trade-offs. These are really big trade-offs. Do you make long-term compromises for the short term of the fire station?
The parking lot, I think, is shown where the septic system is. I think Ed might have given you drawings for the update for the existing town hall, and I think that's where the septic system is.
I don't believe so.
Does it show anything or no?
Yeah, I thought that had been pointed out. So this assumes that this is the best place for the parking lot, and the septic system would need to be relocated. Okay. Now that's a big assumption, and it's a significant expense in where you're going to put it. So this is based in at a very preliminary level, what seems like the best layout for parking in the senior center, but, and the buts are septic system, ongoing operations of fire department.
And also about the different levels. The fire department is a much lower level than the parking lot.
Yeah.
Yes.
With seniors, and you want them to park up there and then walk down to the senior center. That's maybe not
Terrific.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So there is a long list of challenges to this site, any of which could be make or break. Again, looking at this, it seemed as though we could deal with the grading. So we would look at that. We would not say at the end of this project, oh, yeah. It seems like the grading will work. We need to work out a grading plan. But before we work out a grading plan, we want to talk through some of these other issues, like where does the building go? Where does septic go? So we can't run around in circles. But it would be great to get some input, like this fire station question. How important is it that that the building not be torn down until the new building is built? Is that a huge hardship to have a temporary location?
I don't know that that temporary location exists. So
Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
Might be the time to talk to Hackworth Security if they are in fact moving.
Yeah, it looks like everything's out of that building now.
Yeah, that might be worth an early conversation if that's the case.
Well, one of the things we can do, why don't we do this on our end, is maybe we've had all of these discussions and it's in meeting minutes, but maybe I should do some combination of, information we would like to have, pros and cons. Maybe that's what we should do on our end, is do some pros and cons that are not just about sites, but about trade-offs on sites, like the location of the senior center versus location of the parking. And that might crystallize some of these issues. I'm sort of thinking aloud here. Why don't we work on that and getting that in your hands? I don't think there'll be much that we haven't talked about, but if it's on paper, does that make sense?
Yeah, and I have one other suggestion for you. You're going to be here next Thursday.
Yeah.
I'd like you to take a close look and even take some photographs from the town hall of that current fire EMS building and site. Because I think rather than looking at it on a topographical map, I'll think you'll start seeing what we're talking about as far as not only, removing the building and finding a temporary location is one thing, but and my quick assessment, I know you designed in a drop off for that lower facility, but if you've got someone dropping people off, or if you've got someone that would be like me who might go to a senior center just by themselves and having to park up above, I think you'll start seeing maybe the concerns about parking up above and having to walk down to that level.
Yeah. Oh, no. And it's not as unconcerned. Here's another thing we should do. Let me roll out some tracing paper on top of that site plan and just see if it does seem to be viable. It might need significant retaining walls. And what are the costs associated with that? What are the subsurface conditions? What is the Conservation Commission going to say? So the thought was maybe pretty big retaining walls, but it's possible they can do a very preliminary grading plan that makes it a bit clearer. I mean, 10-foot retaining wall, maybe it'll work. 20-foot retaining wall, probably not. So we'll take a preliminary look. And in some ways, standing there is really important, but it's quantified on the topographic plan. So before I come out, we'll take a look at that. And if it just doesn't seem impossible, we'll tell you, did preliminary grading, this is crazy, it's not going to work. I think now's the time to do that.
I mean, I totally agree with Rini in that, we need to work with you collaboratively to decide on these locations. If they're not viable, quantify why they're not viable. And if you want to come 15 minutes early and take a little more time on next Thursday, then I would recommend that while you're in town. So
Yeah, no, definitely. And took a bunch of photographs and not unaware of the challenges, both from the topographic plan, look pretty careful at these sites, but we'll dig in a little deeper. And I think, so, I'll push on you for information you need, but it's reasonable to push at me. And I think this issue about the grading, like Mr. Architect, could this really work is a very reasonable question. And we'll take a look at that.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember last week when we had our mini meeting there, Marla was on vacation and you were going to reach out to her about something. And was it about something on this property? Do you remember that?
I can't remember if it was this property or this property and the old town hall or the police station property. It might have been both. So I have not had a chance to do that yet.
Okay. All right.
Because Old Town Hall, we've been asking for a site plan. We don't need a site plan. 1.14 acres. We don't need a site plan. I mean, it wouldn't hurt, but that's something I know we were pushing on and we backed off because we know the acreage.
Okay, so I think we can probably start to wrap up today. We have some good action steps, exciting for next week. And I guess I encourage everybody to either print out some of those flyers. I think Joan has some, get them distributed. I know it was on Robert Floyd's e-newsletter last week. I'll encourage him to do it again. We'll get it on the community Facebook page. It's been on the COA page. So we'll keep pushing the message out. So the next meeting is potentially Thursday, the 17th, is in 2 weeks. Because I think the Thursday after that is Thanksgiving. So I may not be available, but certainly Andrew could run the meeting. So unless we could at least move it till 12:30, that would give me a little more breathing room.
I will have a conflict on the 17th. I'll just let you know.
I'm free on the 7th.
But you won't miss me anyway.
We'll just hand you the to-do list when we're done. How's that?
That's fine.
Well, we know how big the screen is. What else do we need to know?
It's big.
Yeah.
So how's the 17th work for everybody else? And again, I may not be able to tune in till later. So
That's fine.
That works.
Another commitment.
everybody else is good for the 17th? Excellent.
Yeah, the 17th is fine for me if you need me to kick off the meeting.
Yeah, okay. That'll be good.
What time are you looking at, Janet?
If we could make it closer to 12:30 versus 12, that gives me a little bit more breathing room, but I'm not sure. I'm coming back from out of town, so
12:30 is fine with me.
12:30 is fine.
30 work, okay. 11:17, 12:30. So I'll get something posted and get the Zoom link out, and then I can make somebody else to share so they can let people into the meeting. So that should be fine. So, okay. Anything else before we wrap up?
And just want to say the pushing back and forth is really, really useful. I'm trying to push on you, you push on us. That's the only way we're going to move forward. So totally appreciate it.
Okay, great. Same here. We appreciate the push back and forth, but we're definitely a team.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Do we have a motion to adjourn at 2:22?
I make a motion.
Darcy, second, Audrey. Okay, roll call. Audrey.
Aye.
Libby.
Aye.
Darcy.
Aye.
Jeannie.
Aye.
Janet. Aye. Okay, great. Thank you very much for another productive meeting. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
See you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.